Here's the only 3 things you can control in your life. Hey everybody. Okay, so in this episode, I want to share some things that are happening to me in my life, and share with you some of the training I did, some of that reinvigoration of ideas and strategies that I've known about, that I believe all of us know about, but I think sometimes we lose track of it, especially in times like we're facing now, where there just seems to be so much friction constantly ongoing. And I want to bring to you a positive message, because I believe in the end, whenever we have any challenges, whenever we have any issues that we're facing in life, and I'll share with you some of the self-doubt that's been happening to me lately and kind of how I overcame it. I believe these ideas, these training sessions, these strategies, the reading a good book, going back to the basics will really help us. So in diving right in, I want to share with you the 3 things, the only 3 things in life we have full control over. Now, some of you might say, Dan, we have way more control over more than 3 things in life. But when you start digging deep into this idea, into this concept, I've come to realize that there's really only 3 things. And I believe a lot of the greatest teachers in today and in the past will agree with this. So the 3 things are our thoughts, our words, and our actions. And the reason I'm bringing this to you today is, as most of you know, myself and my partners, we're on a huge mission right now to bring Bridger to the forefront of logistics CRMs. We know without a shadow of a doubt we have the best product on the planet, and it's only getting better. So that's a belief. Now, here's the part where I've had this happen in freight sales, and now it's happening again. So when we understand it and we know it's going to happen, and when it's happened to us before, and then we can come back to it and say, oh my gosh, yeah, that's how it happened before, and this is what I did. This is where everything changes. And what that is that self-doubt. And, this brings us back to point 1, which is our thoughts. Okay, so it was about 3:30 in the morning this morning. We're sitting here Friday, May 10th, and I just woke up with this defeating belief, as if I was an imposter, right? We have big goals for the company. I've never taken my own personal company to these heights, right? For the goals that we have. The company that I did the most with was Teamwork Freight Systems when we opened up a brokerage, and that settled in at right about the $40 million mark. So we have goals about 4 times what that number is, right? And so that goal is scary. It's in a new market, which is SaaS, and it's development of a product to help people get better at what they do. So it's a lot different than logistics sales. And this idea, this strategy has been in my head for years now to help 10,000 sales reps generate $1 million GP. And it's interesting because I never once until this morning had that big of a self-doubt hit me. That's my thoughts. So it's 4:00 in the morning. I'm lying there, my eyes are open, and I start saying to myself, these are the words. I start saying, well, why is this coming to me now? Why am I thinking about this now? Because the fact is, we're at a point where I'm well within my range of knowing where I am, because we're not at the point where I exceed where I've been before. So I understand this part still. Now, do I have business coaches? Yes. Do I have people that I'm going to try and help me get past that plateau that I've hit? Yes. Because here's the one thing I've learned in all of the personal development, all of the professional development I've done. We learn into the person we want to become. And this is the investment part of everything we do, right? When we have a definiteness of purpose, We have a direction. We have a goal that we're going to. We're not sure how to get there. And that's facts. I don't know how to get to the 300 million that we want to get to. But I'll tell you this. I know I can learn into that. And this is the big part that I think a lot of people get scared with, or they don't articulate it in their head, right? Those thoughts don't apply to, okay, no matter where I am, if I'm just starting out in logistics, if I've been in logistics for 5 years, if I've been in logistics for 10 years, if I've been in logistics for 50 years, I learn into the next level of who I want to become. And we see this a lot when you go from like a salesperson to a manager, right? Salesperson to a manager, you learn into the position. A lot of the times people are great salespeople, horrible managers. And you've probably experienced it. Maybe you're somebody like me who, when I first went from a salesperson to a manager, I thought I was going to be like an amazing manager because crazy as it is, I assumed everybody kind of worked on the same level that I worked. Not realizing that is so far from the truth, right? When you become a manager, I think you enter a realm that's way harder. And for all of you managers out there, please let me know. Because I think being a manager is way harder than a salesperson. Because as a salesperson, you just got to you just got to focus on your tasks to complete your goals. As a manager, you're trying to motivate other people to do things to complete their goals, so your goals get completed as well. So there's a different part of it, right? But getting back to the thoughts piece of, how this destroys us, right? So we start having thoughts like, I'm not good enough. We start having thoughts like, I can't make this work. We start having thoughts like, every customer just wants cheap rates. We start having thoughts like, I've been selling for 3 months and I haven't landed any new accounts. And we have all these negative thoughts. Then what those thoughts do is they translate into words, right? Well, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I've lost my edge. Maybe I'm out of my realm. Maybe I should do something else. Maybe I should think. And then those words become our next actions. And those actions are, well, and this might be a subconscious level. I'm not saying that you necessarily think this, but subconsciously, these are some of the things that are the processes that the subconscious mind's going through. And it's, well, if I'm not good enough, if I'm not achieving the goal, why am I trying so hard? So then your actions are stop trying. And I think now, more than ever, a lot of us feel this way. And I'll put myself in that category because I'm constantly, I'm a very positive person, but I'm constantly monitoring my thoughts and saying, is this thought going to get me closer to or further from my goal? And some people, I've had many conversations about this with people, and some people say, Dan, you know what? It is almost a full-time job monitoring your thoughts when you really start analyzing and start paying attention to what they have. And as of 4:00 this morning, I realized that, yeah, it's sometimes a really tough go. When that thought first hit me at 4:00, I was like, okay, well, this is weird. And in a way, I was expecting it. And in another way, I was sitting there saying, Dan, why is this thought coming up? So instead of the words, right, that we talked about, thoughts, words, actions, instead of the words and saying, oh yeah, that's right, I stop and I say, okay, why? And I start asking myself this question. So if you're listening to this and you're able to pull out a pen and paper and start writing this down, because I really think, and if you're not, then save this episode and come back and watch it when you're able to write a few things down, because I think this is really going to help you. So the first thing I do when these negative thoughts hit my brain is I stop and I say, let's try and figure out why this is happening. Is it a lack of control in my environment? Am I hanging out with naysayers? Am I downgrading my mastermind and the people I associate with? These are some of the things I start speaking. I start speaking to myself in my head and I go, okay, can I turn this fear into fuel? What pieces of this fear can I just flip on its head and turn it into fuel to help me scale how I'm going to get there faster? Because if we have doubts, the best way to overcome them is to accomplish what we had doubts about. And then we start building this feeling, right? And maybe you've done that before when it's come to like sports, for example, or it's come to, another great one is probably different projects around your house, right? It's like you start out on a project, and if you guys are like me, I don't necessarily think through the entire thing before I start. I just get going. And the reason I do that on most levels is because I think if we think through all the way till the end, that's where sometimes that paralysis comes in. So I tend to just say, okay, what do I need to do to start? So I need to do these steps. Okay. And it's one thing that the late, great Bob Proctor taught me very early on, probably when I was like 20, when I first got into his You Were Born Rich seminar. And he said, like, achieving your goals and really figuring out your destination and where you want to go in life and where that destiny is fairly simple. You just got to go to the end of where your headlights are and keep going. And he referenced it to like driving in the dark, right? You don't think 10 miles ahead in the dark. You think where the end of your headlights are. And when you reach the end of your headlights now project you further forward. So this is the piece that I always say to myself right away. I'm like, okay, why are these thoughts coming in? And what's my next step? I try not to think, and some people might have a different approach on this. Some people will think 10 steps ahead. I know people that literally work through the entire encompassing issue and then move forward. I tend to think one step, move forward, and I say when I get to the end of that step, I know the next step will present itself. It always does. However, it's taken me accomplishment after accomplishment after accomplishment to understand that. And maybe you're not in that position right now, and that's fine. It's actually a really good place to be, because when you accomplish that joy, energy, and feeling, and just that sheer vibration that you get from accomplishing it when you thought it wasn't possible is outstanding. So you're going to love that. That's what I wish for you if you haven't been that. So that's the thought part. Then the word part, I stop and I go, okay, well, first of all, why am I feeling that way? What is the mindset? What was that kind of nucleus? What was that trigger, if you will, that got me thinking like that? And why? So I sat there until about 4:30 and I started talking to myself about it and saying, okay, well, why, Dan? Like, why is it you get this imposter feeling? You're not going out into the market saying we're a $400 million company when we're not. So that's not imposter. You haven't built the company to 400 million. So that's not imposter. You've built companies well beyond where your numbers are right now. So that's not imposter, because I've been there, done that. I realized, well, there is no reason for me to feel like that. So why am I feeling like that? So then I started investigating that. And then I eventually stopped and I said, okay, so my investigation has come to the point where it's a massively fictitious thought. So that's one. And I stop and I go, okay, so it's a stupid thought. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve my mission. It doesn't serve the company's mission. It doesn't serve my partner's mission. It doesn't serve any of the missions. It doesn't serve my family's mission. So I'm going to eliminate that thought. But how do I eliminate it? This is where the action comes in my opinion. The action then, I turned and I started to put on a training course that I have all about definitive purpose and thinking into results. And again, that action turned it from 4 and then by 5:30, that was done. I was on a whole new path. And I said, okay, I got to talk about this today on the podcast because I want to be real with you guys. For starters, you're along with me on this journey to build this company. And we're going to be talking about the building of it and kind of what the thought process is in behind and how we're doing what we're doing and how we as a company are learning into the growth that we want to achieve, but not only learning into the growth we want to achieve, learning into the building of the business and how it works and how we work with people and customers and all this kind of stuff. And so literally what normally would sometimes crush individuals for the day maybe even sometimes crush people's dreams, I'm now able to get rid of in 60 to 90 minutes. And really, of that 90 minutes that it took me, probably about 60 of it, 50 to 60 minutes of it was the training. Because here's the thing, I'm always 2 to 5x positive versus negative. So what I mean by that is if you think about something for 10 minutes, try and do a minimum of 20 minutes, hopefully higher, more like in the 50-minute mark, of something positive to counteract that negative. And I find that is the sweet spot. So like I did, about an hour and 20 minutes, I guess, more or less, for something I'd thought about for about 20 or 30 minutes, right? So I doubled the impact. Now, what I also did, for those of you that are on video, is you can see here, actually you can't see. There we go. We'll do it a little bit on the side here. You can see all the notes that I took. So I took about 6 pages of notes in my notepad, highlighted different things, blue, oranges, reds, just to give me that idea. And then what I actually have here is in these notes, I've actually got about an hour and a half of work left to do in these notes after this podcast. And the reason I do it like this is for a couple of things. Have you ever, in your personal or professional life, had an issue and then you called somebody, or maybe you leaned on a mentor or a manager or a colleague, and as you're sharing with them what it is that's going through your head, the answers come to you? You see, I think we all do this, and I think part of this is our ability to think through things as we speak about it, right? They often say you don't really understand something until you can teach it to somebody else in a clear, concise, and easy to consume form. So that's what this podcast is. This podcast is that working through my mental piece of this after having that 20, 30 minute conversation about negativity and questioning myself. Why? Like, I think why is one of the greatest questions we can ever ask ourselves. Why X? Why X? And just keep asking it. So why did I have this thought? Well, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, well, why did da-da-da-da happen? Okay, because of this, and this. Okay, so why, because of this, and this, did that happen? And you really start hammering down and get to the nucleus of what it was. And it's interesting because I still don't know why I got woken up at 4 o'clock with a feeling of self-doubt. I just don't know why. I'm going through it and I'm like, nope, there's zero signs of that here. There's zero signs of that there. There's zero signs of that there. Why am I having this thought? And it's like almost invigorating. And I know some of you are probably sitting there going, Dan, you're smiling and you're like, the energy in your voice is getting bigger and bigger and bigger because, but why? This is a negative thought. Like, this is crushing. And because I love the fact that when I ask myself why, it's like, I don't know where that came from, because now it gives me something to find out. And when I dig, there's that education piece. There's that learning into the next level of the person I want to be. And that's where, when we don't have answers, that's a golden moment for us to learn to the next level. And I think this is so huge for us as individuals, because that thought process that translates to words, that translates to actions. Like, I took this negative, sometimes paralyzing idea that, Dan, you're not good enough. You're not educated enough. And I've been very open with all of you. I mean, I've got a grade 9 education, and that education piece, crippled me until I was in my mid-30s. Like, my mid-30s, thinking nobody's going to pay attention to me because I'm too young. Nobody's going to bother listening to what I have to say because I'm too young. And I think these are such crippling thoughts, right? So you think about this for a second. That thought led to me saying to myself, I'm not worthy, I'm not educated enough, I don't have the ability to help anybody achieve their goals regardless of what I've been in through life. And what happened? My actions were a direct replica or a direct cause and effect of my words. My words were a direct cause and effect of my thoughts. And so what was the end result? No forward momentum to helping 10,000 sales reps generate $1 million GP. So what was the breaking point? When I sat with a colleague, Dave, and he suggested that only really educated people can do it. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, for all this time, I could have been helping more people realize their dream. But I allowed fictitious thoughts to control my words that I was saying to myself that controlled ultimately my actions to achieve that goal. And so, this I think is where a lot of us struggle. And if you're the one that struggles, like, be honest with yourself. I think a lot of the times too, I guess let me phrase it like this, and this is going to be pretty bold for all of you, but I think it's accurate. I think if we don't have these negative thoughts, something's wrong. And when I say something's wrong, it means you're not aiming high enough. I really do. Like, if you can tell me in full transparency that you never have negative thoughts about achieving your goals, my first response to you would be, well, then you need to aim way higher than you're aiming now. Because if you don't, it's too comfortable. And, I was listening to Tom Bilyeu the other day, and he was talking about, a lot of people say the universe is with you and it's looking for you to achieve. And he has the opinion that the universe conspires against you. And I think he's right in a lot of senses. And the reason I think he's right, just before all you decide, you're crazy, Dan. The reason he's right is because I think the universe is there for people that truly want that goal and are willing to invest. Some people call it sacrifice. I call it investing. You're investing in one thing you're avoiding one, you're investing in another to achieve a certain purpose, right? It's like health, right? Some people say, well, you got to sacrifice all the junk food. No, you're investing in eating healthy because you're investing in a longer life for yourself that's healthier, that's more vibrant, that's more energetic, more joyful, more filled with harmony. And that investment far outweighs any quote unquote sacrifice. And so I look at all this stuff, and you start compiling it and you start formulating it in your head, and then it really starts to come to light. Now, here's the problem. Is sometimes we don't catch our subconscious mind. Now, I just happened to catch it at 4 a.m. because it woke me up out of a deep sleep. So to me, I pay attention to that because I'm like, okay, why in hell did this happen? And, but sometimes you probably experience it where you're just going through your day and all of a sudden you realize you've been what they call it spiraling, where you spiral on this negative idea until it becomes this overwhelming, massive issue, when it hasn't even happened yet. And maybe some of you have done this where, you're having an issue with a customer. I mean, I remember this vividly, doing it I don't know how many times, where it's like, something fails, a load fails, doesn't deliver, goes missing, whatever. And you're like, that's it, we're done. We're done. Customers are never going to use us again. And we come up with all of these fictitious scenarios that haven't even transpired yet. And here's the thing. You have no control over it. The only three things in life that you control are your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Now, there's subsidiaries of all of these, right? But these are the three things in life that we can control. Our thoughts control our feelings control our words control our actions. And so inside, this is the process. This is the loop that just keeps going over and over and over and over again. It goes from thoughts to words to actions, back to thoughts to words to actions. Now, you can spiral up or you can spiral down, right? Spiraling down is like, well, I'm no good. I'm no good. Yes, Dan, you're no good. That's incredible. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything because I'm no good. Then that goes back to thoughts. Oh, because I didn't do anything, then I may as well just not do anything again. And before you know it, it's been 3 months since you've exercised. It's been like it's and again, it's constant with us as human beings. I've said it before, I'll say it again. There will never be a human 2.0. We are a human 1.0. Our brain function cognitively works in a certain way. So we have to learn how to hack that. Thoughts, words, actions. Pay attention to those 3 things. I hope this helped you today. I wrote down a few more notes here that I just want to go over quickly before we get into anything else. So one thing is understand that this is going on in the background. So if you're not in control of your environment, right? If you're constantly hanging out with negative people and maybe you say, well, you know what, I'm just not going to listen to them. Understand that our subconscious mind is downloading information in the background, right? So, you'd be better off if there's things you're doing during the day. So say you're doing like a presentation or say you're doing something. What I've learned to do, and one thing that's really helped me when it comes to like you're in the middle of a presentation or you're in the middle of crafting that next email or you're in the middle of crafting or going through a bid package. And then all of a sudden these negative thoughts hit you. When they do, one thing that I've done because I want to really control every environment I'm in. And so one thing that I've constantly done, and every time I get a negative thought, I do this, is I take headphones, I put them in, and I either put on a really good book, a really good podcast, or music I love that energizes me. So there's certain songs like One Margarita by Luke Bryan, Nickelback, Burn It to the Ground, Nickelback, If Today Was Your Last Day. Like there's a bunch of songs that I love. A couple of Bob Marley songs, love them. Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg songs. Cypress Hill, one of my favorite bands of all, or groups of all time. I put on music that I love. And what I find is it eliminates that thought and allows me to complete my task with authority, right? So that's one. I've already talked to you about turning fear into fuel. Control over your time. This for me is really big, right? So here's the thing when it comes to time. Are we investing our time or are we wasting our time? When we waste our time, I think this is where, like if you've ever been bored, this is where I think a lot of these negative thoughts start happening. So at those times, how can you flip that and invest your time into a good book, into a podcast, into maybe a course, into learning something to take you to that next level? One thing that we saw during COVID was very relevant. There were people that wasted time, right? Binge Netflix and all this kind of stuff, or people that retooled for the next stage of the economy, right? And maybe you're one of the people that retooled. I know I was retooling constantly during COVID, just thinking, okay, who do I want to be when we come out of this? How do I want to serve? What do I want to do? And how do I need to learn into that person? And so that's the message for today, my friends, is use that time and invest that time wisely to learn into the next person you're going to be. And remember, your thoughts control your words control your actions, and all of those are really, thoughts create feelings as well. Words create feelings and your actions create feelings. So those 3 are the only controllables you have in your life. Everything starts there. Any other controllable, if there's an event happening in the world, you have no control over it, don't worry about it. Tony Robbins said something really cool years ago. I heard this. He said, there's only 2 ways to do things. One, if you can control the outcome, then you control it, so why worry about it? And number 2, if you can't control the outcome, why worry about it? Right? There's only, not 2 things you can only accomplish. 2 things you can, 2 things that you can control, right? So you can't control when somebody else is in charge, so why worry about it? And you can control, so if you're in control of it, you do your best to it, then don't worry about the outcome. And I think a lot of the times we as individuals, because we're human 1.0s, we worry about the outcome because we want better things. I think, the last part of this is that definiteness of purpose idea is that, you have to be willing to invest into it. Whatever it is, my friends, I don't care what you're trying to do. If it's something you've never done, if it's something where you're trying to achieve a goal, that is an investment, and you have to be willing to do the work in order to achieve the goal. This is why so many people do not achieve their goals, because they don't want to do the work. They say they want to, but when it really comes down to brass tacks, they don't want to do it. So don't be that person. Control your thoughts, control your words, control your actions, and direct them all to your bigger goal. The big rung, the 10 rungs above where you are right now. Aim higher. If you're not scared, you're not aiming high enough. Until next time, my friends, go out there, have a wicked day. Make every call educational and crush your sales. We'll see you next week.